And we are back for another casual conversation with the classic. Today I am here with Daniel, my co-host, and we got a very special guest with us. It's none other than co-founder of the ARCG Media and WWE Community member, Rob Aurelius. How are you doing today?
Good, man. It's good to be on the show. Thank you, Justin, and thank you, Daniel.
Of course.
I really appreciate you making time for us today. It's a nice Saturday, and we're on here. We just went through Elimination Chamber. That was some good stuff as well, but it's a new year. It still feels like a new year. I know we're almost midway through February, but the first question I have for you is, how's 2022 been for you so far?
So far, it's been pretty good. I was telling everybody, like, the beginning of the year that I still felt like I was in a funk, like I was still stuck in 2021. I don't know why, but I don't know. It feels a little different now. I guess as the days have gone by, things have been a little better. So I'm looking forward to 2022. We're already 2 months in, but it's WrestleMania season, so I'm excited about that.
WrestleMania season's always a blast, but I do feel like 2021 was a lot of recovery from 2020, and it's like now things are finally getting back in that groove. So that's good to hear. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
No, for sure. But I wanted to kick it off by asking, what got you into professional wrestling?
Well, I'm sure like you guys, I was a fan since I was a child. I have 2 older brothers. So, they're a little older. They're in their 40s. They were, this is even before the Attitude Era. So they were like the Federation Year fans. And my brothers used to do a lot of Ultimate Warrior running around in the house. One of my brothers used to do the Lex Luger torture rack on me all the time and make me cry. And I was one of those kids that when I saw The Undertaker come out, I would get scared because, back then we used to watch pay-per-views through the cable provider, and we would watch it because, of course, the pay-per-views were always at night. My brothers would turn the lights off in the living room. So, when The Undertaker came out, they would make me feel really scared. But, my generation, I would say, was the Attitude Era, which I think was the best era ever for WWE. Look, WWE's doing great and they're going to continue to do great, but nothing's ever going to be like the Attitude Era because we had such good names. We had Austin, we had Rock, we had Shawn Michaels, Triple H, Mankind, you know what I'm saying? The list goes on.
It was like the height of their popularity and like the biggest time where they actually crossed over into pop culture. And I think wrestling as a whole during that era, like even on the flip side, on the WCW side, like it was just overall like wrestling was cool during that era. And my story relates to yours a lot because I have an older brother who's like 10 years older than me, and he grew up, a Hulkamaniac. He was that era, so I was introduced to a lot of that growing up on VHS tapes and magazines and the action figures that were hand-me-downs to me. But for me, like the same thing, it was that specific era of like, I want to say like 96 forward is like my first memories of wrestling. So from your Undertaker story, for me, like I never really found Undertaker that scary because he was a good guy at that time. But like I thought Mankind was the scariest person ever, like Kane. So like it's cool to hear that story. But for you, like who were some of your favorites growing up then? Like who were some of the people that you said think really like kept you hooked on wrestling?
I mean, look, when I first started to watch wrestling and I was able to understand what was happening, I was a big fan of course, Hulk Hogan. I think everybody was a Hulkamaniac at some point. I was a big fan of the Ultimate Warrior. I just loved the adrenaline, the craziness of him running down and the shaking of the ropes. To be honest, 2 of the guys that I liked a lot was Hogan and, the Heartbreak Kid. Bret Hart. Every time I used to come out, I always used to tell my mom, I was like, Mom, I want to be there one day so you can give me his sunglasses. I thought it was like a cool thing. You know what I'm saying? And, of course, I was a big fan of Piper as well, too. Do you guys remember when Piper had that storyline where he was like in crutches and they beat him up?
I think so. Was this in WWF?
Yeah, there was a
WWF.
There was a story, WWF. There was a storyline where Piper, like, apparently had a leg injury. He was walking down in crutches. He got in the ring and they beat him up. And I remember crying, telling my mom, "Oh, he's injured. Why are they hurting him. And then people, my brothers and my mom would tell me all the time, like, look, it's storyline, it's not real. But how do you explain that to a kid that it's not real? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah,
like you think what you're seeing is real. Like, how is this not real? Yeah.
But I was definitely a big fan of Bret Hart. I was a big fan of Hogan, a big fan of HBK, a big fan of Kane, Taker, of course. I was scared of Undertaker at first, but then as time went by, I just fell in love with the character, the gimmick, and I thought it was one of the greatest stories that WWE ever told was the story of the Undertaker, especially the story of Undertaker and Kane. So, then Austin came in, and then Rock came in, and then, of course, I became a big fan of Rock, a big fan of Austin. I mean, who wasn't a fan of Stone Cold? You know what I'm saying? He was the best. He was the best, and it's crazy, being a wrestling fan and then growing up and not thinking in a million years that one day I was going to start a business that pretty much focuses on servicing people in the entertainment industry, in the sports industry, and literally like one day being able to start talking to WWE people and start doing business with them. It's a dream come true.
Let me ask you a couple of questions off of that before we get more into the business side of things. I do want to hear more about that. But there's two things we kind of touched on there. The first thing I want to ask you, just because it's really relevant at this very particular moment, we just found out that The Undertaker is going into the Hall of Fame, the class of 2022. And just a prediction, per se, who do you think should induct him into the Hall of Fame?
Look, I saw the question being asked yesterday because, of course, I think it was yesterday that they announced Taker being inducted to Hall of Fame. A lot of people are saying Vince should be the one because Vince is the one who came up with the story. If Paul Bear was alive, I think that it would make sense if Paul Bear did it or Bruce Pritchard, because Bruce Pritchard was the one who actually introduced The Undertaker to the world. Unfortunately, last year, the way Kane's Hall of Fame induction took place, I wasn't too happy about it. I was happy for him, but I wasn't too happy about it because I said, man, Kane deserved a better Hall of Fame induction, with fans, with Taker being able to introduce him. So look, to be honest, who I personally want to induct Undertaker into the Hall of Fame is pretty much Kane. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I know Vince is great, but I think Kane should be the one. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, there's a laundry list of names that you could particularly think of. Like, I think Vince is high on that list. I think I saw a lot of that too, because I think Vince doesn't do it often. He doesn't show face at the Hall of Fame, but I think he did it for Austin, and I think if there's any other person he should do it for, it should be The Undertaker. Kane is an obvious one. I think we know as the years gone by, we know his relationship with the likes of people like the Godfather and JBL. So there's other names you could probably pitch, but I think Vince would be really cool, and even Shane, because I know he has a great relationship with Shane. Like, if it was Shane, that'd be pretty cool too. But I just want to ask you that.
Maybe Kane and Vince could do it together. That would be cool.
100%. And I just want to ask you because that is really relevant, and I think it's cool he's going to the Hall of Fame. I'm glad it's back in front of fans. I think the entire class last year, I wish a lot of them were in front of fans, from Kane to Bischoff to the NWO to the Bella Twins. Really all had fans. Yeah. And then the second question I want to ask you, based off of what'd you say?
No, I said everybody that at the Hall of Fame last year definitely deserved, like audience and all that stuff, because we had big names like Bischoff, Rob Van Dam,
Yeah, Van Dam went in. Like, you didn't get the crowd to do the RVD with them. That would have been great. And then the second question I want to ask you, based off of what you just said about growing up and your favorites, is you touched on the fact that they kept trying to tell you a storyline. They kept trying to tell you it's scripted. Like, don't worry, you don't need to get so concerned about it. And I always found, obviously, I'm an older wrestling fan. I'm 30 years old. I've been watching as a kid. There was that period where everyone's like, "Oh, you still watch that? Don't you know it's fake? Like, MMA's out there now, yada yada yada." And I always explain to people why I continued watching it and how I felt about it, and why, like, for me, like, my perspective of it changed, but now I enjoy it for a different reason. So my question to you is, like, what made you continue being a wrestling fan when most people might have been like, "Oh, it's not real"? Like how what was your reasoning to still be passionate about wrestling?
I mean, look, from what I can remember, I think I was 5 years old when I started watching wrestling. Of course, at that time, and even like when I was a teenager, I had a certain sense of what it was and what it was about, but I enjoyed it. And it's like, look, everybody's got a different cup of tea, right? Some people like to watch MMA nowadays. Some people like boxing. Some people like football. Like one of my older brothers, he loves football. He's a big Patriots fan. So my passion what I enjoy, what's part of my hobby, and what makes me happy, and puts me in a good place, and in a good mindset when life could be a little rough, is wrestling, professional wrestling, especially the WWE. I'm a big WWE fan, always been a WWE fan, and I know that now today we have all these other wrestling promotions that exist, and I'm happy for them, and I think they're doing a good job. But I'm a big WWE guy. I'm always going to be a WWE guy. I'm a big advocate for the WWE till the day I die.
Fair enough. I was always curious. For me, it was always like I started looking at it from a different perspective. Once I realized what was going on, I started appreciating the fact that, they do this. There's an art to this. This is theater. This is like any other television show you watch that is like written and portrayed on television. I'm like, this is this, but we get some action with it. And like, these guys are like real athletes. Like, a lot of people want to judge what they're doing, but like I can't do half the stuff they do in the ring, and they're telling a good story at the same time. And great character. So I will share what for you. Anyway, go ahead.
There we go. Yeah, so I wanted to jump in and ask you, you're a WWE community member ambassador, and I wanted to ask, like, how did your relationship with WWE come together?
It took a while, right? But once I got, of course, like I told you and Justin, at some point my business decided that we were going to start working with professional wrestling. And at that point, of course, the WWE was the first thing on my mind, but I didn't really know anybody from WWE. It's crazy because the person who I met, who kind of helped me get on the, put me on the map, was a former WWE wrestler. His name was Gene Snitsky. And how that came about was through my company, ARCG Media. I was servicing a client of mine who specializes in fashion. So she was putting collection together for another person, event here back in New York City. And for some reason, Snitsky was like one of the guests, and he was also sponsoring the event. So Snitsky showed up to the event. I'd seen him come in, and I didn't really know who he was at first. Of course, he's a huge dude. In real life, this guy's like 6'7". You know what I'm saying? He's big. And he was a little heavier at the time. And he walks in with his wife. He sits down. He's having a good time. I'm over here thinking, like, who the hell was that guy? And the funny thing is, I tell this story all the time. He came in wearing shoes that had cow skin on it, like literally like the actual fur of cows. So I said, who's the guy that walked in with the cow skin shoes and like a military jacket that looks like something Matt Hardy will wear? It's so funny. Like shortly after that, like there's a meet and greet a moment at the event. So people are on the step and repeat, taking pictures with the designers, taking pictures with the celebrities, the guests that were there. And I overheard someone in the line say, "Hey, that's former WWE superstar Gene Snitsky." So I turned around and I said, "Where the hell is Gene Snitsky?" And you guys remember when Snitsky left WWE, he was like bald, he looked very hideous. So here I see this guy, pretty normal. He had glasses on. He had pushback hair. So when I looked at him, I said, "That's gotta be Snitsky, because that's the only big guy that's here." So when I looked at him, I approached him away. I told him, "Thank you for coming to the event." He told me that he was one of the sponsors. When I told him that I was working with the designer, he immediately started talking to me. I gave him my card. And, a few days later, he actually reached out to me and said to me, "Hey, man, I'm having an issue on Twitter. I'm trying to get my Twitter verified because there's a lot of Twitter accounts out there pretending to be me." So he says, "Is that something you could do for me?" So I said, "Sure." So I reached out to Twitter at the time. And, this is me pretty much new into, verification and credentials and stuff like that. So I reached out to someone on Twitter and I gave him his information. And shortly, about 48 hours later, he was verified. So when that happened, Snitsky actually gave me a shout out. He tagged me, he tagged my company on Twitter, and some wrestlers, like former WWE wrestlers and just wrestlers in general, started following me. And that caused Prince Nana, which I'm sure you guys know who that is from Ring of now AEW. He started following me, and he actually asked me for the same exact thing. He asked me, "Hey, can you get me verified?" So with that being said, with all these wrestlers following me, Brooklyn Brawler happened to be one of the wrestlers that followed me too. And I didn't know he was following me. So I followed him. You know, he's from Brooklyn. I'm from Brooklyn, whatever. And then one day I had like this Brooklyn project that I was working on. And I reached out to Brooklyn Brawler, asked him for his blessing, asked him like for some kind of an endorsement. And he actually, you know, put out a tweet, you know, shouting me out. And the next thing you know, I said to him, hey, brother, I'm a big fan of the WWE. You know, I would love to go to a show at the Barclays Center one day. And Brawler says to me on Twitter through the DMs, he says to me, the next time you're in Brooklyn, let me know. And I got tickets for you to come to the show. So the good thing about all of this is that because of Snitsky, I was able to be my business partner, Matty Rock. And, you know, Matty's been a special advisor to my business for the last 8 years. And, you know, Matty already knew all the wrestlers. He already knew Rikishi. He already knew, you know, the Nasty Boys. He already knew Ricky Santana. You know, so many old wrestlers, and Booker T as well. So he started telling some of the guys, this is Rob. If you guys ever need any marketing or promotions or advertising, this is the guy to reach out to. He's under my wing. So, you know, this guy does good stuff. And then, you know, Brawler started telling all the wrestlers backstage, you know, starting off with Jonathan Coachman, who was with the company at the time, follow my guy, Rob Aurelius, follow my guy, Rob Aurelius. Next thing you know, Titus O'Neil's following me. Fred Rosser's following me. A whole bunch of people start following me. Cena follows me. And I'm like, what is going on here? You know what I'm saying? And I wanted to make sure that these were the real accounts. So, you know, they all had verified badges. And next thing you know, when they were in town, Titus would hang out with me. He would take me out to dinner with him and stuff like that. Fred was very nice to me. You know, I met him during one of the SummerSlams here in Brooklyn when he was still with the WWE. And that started allowing me to be introduced to other wrestlers. So that's how I was able to meet Finn Balor, Bray Wyatt, Dolph Ziggler, you know, so many other wrestlers, right? And the next thing you know, I'm becoming friends with everybody. I'm very close with McKazzy, who is Sasha Banks' husband. And as you guys may know, he did a lot of the costumes for some of the WWE wrestlers. And my friend Megaran, who's a rapper.
He's the man.
He actually does the now for Xavier Woods. He started introducing more wrestlers. Like he introduced me to the New Day. You know what I'm saying? So now Kofi, Big E, and Xavier Woods know who I am because of Megaran. So next thing you know, I did what I thought was the right thing to do. So I said, look, if I'm being exposed to these people, there's only one thing I can do, and it's literally let these guys know what I'm about. So I said to them, look, this is what I do for a living. I get people verified. I can help you with any outside projects that, you know, WWE might not be able to help you in. And that's where I was able to start building relationships with these people. And then another thing is a lot of the wrestlers backstage like to smoke cigars, and I'm a big cigar guy because of my business partner, Matt. So sometimes I would go backstage and I would give cigars to some of the guys, like Stu Bennett when he was with WWE as Wade Barrett, and all the guys would look at me and be like, "You're just gonna give him a cigar? You're not gonna give me a cigar?" So about cigars to all the guys, and the next thing you know, now I'm friends with almost everybody. So the good thing is today I know half of the roster. You know, some guys I haven't really met face to face yet, but they follow me. Like, for example, like Austin Theory's one of them. But, you know, Rosenberg, he's, you know, said good things about me. McKazzy said good things about me. Titus has told everybody about me backstage as well, too. So, you know, people like Charlotte, people like Becky, people like Sasha, you know, now they know who I am. And I'm very fortunate that these people, you know, speak very highly about me when they see me. And, you know, when I'm not at a show, you know, my name comes up backstage. Oh, this guy can help you with this. And the next thing you know, I'm probably getting a DM from somebody on Instagram or Twitter saying, hey, you know, I heard that you can help me with this. So that's pretty much what I've been doing. So in exchange of that, what I've been doing is I've been helping some of these guys with their projects, and I've asked them in exchange, like, hey, is there any ways you could get me comps? You know, so Bruno, who actually used to be Harvey Whippleman, I'm not sure if he's still with the company. He used to give me tickets all the time because of Brooklyn Brawler. And then when Brooklyn Brawler left WWE, Brawler advised me to start asking for media credentials. So then I started asking for media credentials. And, you know, Joe Villa was the guy at the time. Now things have changed because, you know, WWE's changed a lot of people. And one of the guys to associate with now is Matt Johnson. I'm not sure if you guys know who he is. He's a producer, social media producer for WWE. I don't know Nick very well. I've seen him from time to time. We've said hello to each other, but we've never had a conversation. But now, you know, I have access to get media credentials, and that's how I go to the shows now.
That's right.
No, for sure.
Yeah, no, I've talked to Matt once actually back in 2019. But who are some of the favorite people you've worked with? Like, who are some of the people that you've been able to help out with some of these outside projects and stuff?
Titus, I've helped Titus out. Sonia Deville with the GLAD campaign, for the LGBT stuff and Spirit Day. I've also worked with Finn as well too. I've helped him with his social media on Peak, which is like a clothing line that he has.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I mentioned Fred Rosser, but I was working with him as well too. Now he's in New Japan. Stu Bennett as well. I helped him with his movie. He had a movie that came out. Same John Morrison before he left WWE as well. So some of those are some of the people that I've helped.
No, for sure. But I also wanted to ask you, I think I came across your account like last year sometime, and I saw that picture of you and Stephanie McMahon at I think it was the red carpet, I believe, at the Fox, one of the days or whatever. But I wanted to ask you, like, how was like meeting Stephanie in person?
Yeah, so actually, Matt Johnson took that photo. He's like one of the writers for WWE, and that's how we actually eventually met up. Because I told Matt, when Matt first came across me, he was like, he saw the picture of Stephanie, but he had no idea he was. So one day I told him in person. I said to Matt, you know who took that picture of us? And he was like, no idea. He was like, you took that picture of us. And when I went to Dallas last year and I met with Dan, I remember telling Dan, I'm waiting to meet Matt, and Matt came over and said hello to us, shook hands with us. I met Stephanie that day because it was WWE was promoting SmackDown on Fox, and it was like a few days before the actual premiere on SmackDown. That week they had Stephanie come in. Well, first they had Kofi come in, and Kofi was champion at the time. Second day they had, I believe, was Stephanie. And then the third day they had Charlotte. And the thing is, there was like a meet and greet at some point. And I was with one of my friends, Mike. And what I told him was, I want to have a few words with Stephanie before she leaves. But let all the meet and greet people do their thing. Let them all talk to her. And I waited to the very end. And, of course, as the time was going by, people noticed that I was sticking around. And they're like, look, this guy's here from – because I had a Susan G. Komen pin on. So they thought I worked for Susan G. Komen. Yeah. And, finally, when the line cleared up and everybody was gone, Stephanie was about to go. And I walked over to Matt and I was like, hey, is there a way that I could get a photo with Stephanie and have a few words with her? So he went over next and he said, yeah, sure, no problem. So as soon as I walked up to Stephanie looked at me and says to me, hey, the first thing I noticed about you was the Susan G. Komen pin. And, you're dressed very well. You seem like you're somebody who's in the business. And I said to her, yeah, I said, I'm actually very good friends with your brother, Shane. And she was like, really? I was like, yeah. I was like, we talk about sneakers and cigars all the time. And she goes, really? So then I told her I've been representing Susan G. Komen for a few years now. And one of the main reasons why I represent Susan G. Komen is because of you guys, WWE. So Stephanie was like, thank you very much. So then she looks at me and she goes to me, let's take a picture together. I'm going to make you look like $1 million. And then I took the photo. She actually points like towards my the pin. And that was a good moment for me. That was like one of the best moments ever because cool. I've always said to people, I've never been able to meet Vince McMahon. I don't know if I ever will. I've seen Vince at shows. I've seen Vince maybe 3 or 4 times come out on a show. And it's funny because the first time I saw Vince was the year that Raw had the Raw 25th and Vince came out. Stone Cold came out at the end and stunned them. That was the first time I've ever seen Vince McMahon at a show. I've never seen Vince McMahon before. And then after that, I saw Vince like maybe 2 or 3 times after that. Shane, I've seen a few times. Shane, I've actually met outside of WWE. But Stephanie was someone that I always wanted to meet. I haven't met Hunter yet. I've never seen Triple H in person. I haven't even seen Triple H even when I've been backstage, I've never been able to see Triple H. But, that moment was very special to me because I was able to talk to Stephanie about Susan G. Komen. I was able to talk to her about Connor's Cure, which is also something very special to me. And I was telling Stephanie that I had just started like doing promotions for the WWE community. So she was thankful for all of that. She was able to, acknowledge who I am. And, one day I heard somebody tell me backstage, oh, the word on the street is that, you're one of the people out there that's making a difference. And I was like, really, where's that coming from? And I was like, oh, we heard that, Stephanie brought you up. And I was like, wow, that's crazy. And with Mania Club. And once I started affiliating with Mania Club, because Stephanie has a good connection with them, she found out that I was a part of Mania Club. She got even more excited, But yeah, like that photo, that photo was taken in 2019, and people look at me all the time and say, how come you still have the same profile picture from like 3 years ago? And I'm like, look, that picture is going to stay there forever, because that's one of the highlights of my career, meeting Stephanie McMahon and being able to tell her how much the WWE community means to me.
No, 100%. That's actually really cool. It's a cool story.
For sure. But I also wanted to ask you, I think it was a while back where I think Ric Flair also gave you a shout out. And I know you and I have talked about this in person. I know you're a big Flair guy. I love Flair. I think he's one of the greatest of all time to do it. But what did it mean for you to receive that shout out from, the 16-time champ himself, Ric Flair?
Yeah. Well, like I said, I got one guy to thank, and it's the Brooklyn Brawler. He introduced me to everybody. And with that comes a lot. And, that's how I was able to also, Charlotte knows who I am, and I know who Charlotte is.
Yeah.
One time, Brawler was at a convention. This is post WWE, and he introduced me to Rick. And he said, Rick, if you ever need somebody to do your social media, this is a guy that you can rely on. Next thing you know, Ric Flair follows me on Twitter. And I followed him back, and I thought it was just his social media team. So I was like, yeah, it's probably just a social media team. It's not even really him. Next thing you know, I was being asked for my address. So I was like, is he hacked? Is this a scam? What's going on? And actually, he started sending me stuff. Like, he started sending me shirts and whatnot, and like a lot of stuff from his website, ricflairshop.com, so that I can help promote his website.
Yeah.
And I started giving him shout outs. He started retweeting it. And one day he asked me when was my birthday, and I told him, what day my birthday was. He gave me a shout out on Twitter. It was like a tweet, and he was like, happy birthday to the man. And one day he just randomly tweeted out, something about, I'm good in his book. So Brooklyn Brawler saw that, a lot of people saw that, and they were like, hey man, what's going on? This guy's praising you, this means a lot. So when it comes to the video, I like sharing this story because it's actually very humbling. Justin, you brought up 2020 earlier, and of course, the beginning of 2020 was really bad for a lot of people. I was already going through some stuff in the beginning of 2020 because I had just lost one of my clients to begin that year, and that client was like a huge part of my income. And when I lost that client, I got really depressed, and I didn't even know the pandemic was coming, and then the pandemic started. So I said to myself, how the heck am I going to make money now? When now there's this pandemic thing happening, and I still really don't understand what the pandemic was. I didn't know that we were going to be on lockdown like that. I said to people, look, I'm going through it right now. I'm having a hard time. I'm losing clients. And as the pandemic continued, I started losing more clients. And there was clients like, hey, I can't afford to pay you, or I'm closing my store down. Because, I do promotions and branding for a lot of businesses. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, we're under contract. And they're like, yeah, but, I a lot of people were just telling me, look, I can't continue doing business with you. I'm sorry. So I was really depressed. And one day, I was, just writing to people, and I DM'd Rick, and I was like, hey, I hope everything is well. I hope things are, I was checking on him too, because, a few years ago he got really sick, and we thought he almost left. And, thank God he's still with us. So I was checking on him, and I was like, how are you? How's everything? And he was like, I'm doing good, brother. Everything's all good. I'm good. And, I told him my situation. I was like, look, I lost a lot of clients. I don't know what's going to happen. It really sucks. And I told him, man, my company's 7th year anniversary is coming up, and I really don't know what to do. So he says to me, when's the anniversary? And I was like, this date. And he was like, okay. So he was like, maybe I should do something special for you. Send me your email address. So I said, okay, what is he going to do for me? So one day I checked my email, and I had an email from Ric Flair. And when I opened it up, it was actually a video. And it was a video of him congratulating me. And I was like, what? Like, did somebody tell do this? Or like, you know, and I even contacted him. I was like, Rick, like, what made you do this? And he was like, brother, I'm just trying to help you out. You told me that you lost a lot of business. Hopefully this video can help you out. So I said, well, what way is it going to help me out? So anyways, I posted it on my social media. And I'll be honest with you guys, I lost about 20 clients when the pandemic started. I gained 25 new clients after I posted.
That's crazy.
That's insane.
Exposure for me, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And people started to take me more serious because some people were like, man, if somebody like Ric Flair can actually do a video like that and shout you out, and you could tell that it's a video that he knows who the person is because he's saying the person's name, he's saying the name of the company, and just the way he's talking to that person, it seems like him and that person somehow have like some kind of relationship. They're like, it's good stuff. So I started getting phone calls, emails, text messages from friends like, hey, my associate saw the video the other day. He's interested in hiring you. And I contacted Rick and I told Rick, you don't know what that did, but that did a lot of wonders for you. Really. So last year in Tampa, he was staying at a hotel in a Marriott out in Tampa. I actually saw him and I walked up to him and I bought him like a bottle of champagne and I told him this is for looking out for me last year. And he was like, no, brother, I don't do things for money or I don't do things for whatever. And I was like, no, I really appreciate it because it really, really made a difference for me. And it's something special. It's something that, that video is going to be worth so much when he's no longer here. And, I can show it to the rest of the world and I can show it to, because, there's so many people out there that still don't know that the video was made for me. It's something that, what I tell people is, look, if I ever feel down, if I ever feel like giving up, Ric Flair's video is a reminder of why I do what I do.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
That's amazing. It's a really cool story, man. And it's Ric Flair, man. That's like one of the greatest of all time. And for him to endorse you like that's a really big deal. And I'm glad things turned around for you. And it's super cool. I'm very curious though, like with ARCG Media, the digital marketing agency, like what outside of wrestling, like who else do you guys represent? Like what other are you guys into other sport forms of entertainment as well?
I wanted to get into the UFC because there was a guy called Don Madge, and he needed promotions, right? And I think he was from South Africa or something like that. I can't remember. And he reached out to me. He was following me on Twitter. He was following my company on Twitter. And he was like, hey, I'm looking for promotions in America. And I was really going to give it a shot. But, it's up in the air still. It's probably something that I would probably have to bring in some people that have MMA experience and hire them and let them run that aspect. Because I cater more to like helping people with their social media. Like I help people, I help create business accounts, like whether it's Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. I help websites. I help with SEO. I help with marketing, promotions, advertising. I help people grow their followers and whatnot organically. But yeah, we work with, I was able to work with a few music artists. Some of them already have won like music awards, and they've won Grammys and whatnot. I've also worked with directors. I've worked with actors. So one of my clients is actually an actor from SVU, Law and Order, which is one of my shows. His name is Delaney Williams. So yeah, we haven't just when we started off, we were helping out music artists, we were helping out actors, we were helping out brands and companies. And then we started focusing on WWE. But the thing is, when I started working with the WWE, that's where a lot of my income started coming in. So, that was literally feeding me for a long time. And it still is, And because of that, I was able to meet other people as well, too, from other industries. Because, once they would look me up, they would see the WWE and they were like, oh, wow, this guy works with WWE. Cool. He seems legit. So, yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. But I think switching gears here a little bit, I know you're a mental health advocate, and I also wanted to ask you, do you have any advice for anybody who could be possibly struggling for mental health? Because you and I talked about this, and I would like to have your perspective out in the world, I guess.
Yeah, man. Look, I'll be honest with you. Mental health is a serious thing. There's definitely a stigma out there. There's stigma where, apparently they tell men don't cry and don't show your emotions and don't tell people how you feel. With some of the guys from WWE and other people that I've worked with, they've shared with me some of their stories, like how they were raised, how they grew up, the stigmas, the all the stereotypes and whatnot. And I started to tell people, it's crazy. I never spoke about my mental health because I was always embarrassed or scared that somebody would make fun of me or somebody would talk about me and tell people my business. And then, people like Titus, and I'm sure you guys heard of Titus's story, how, his mom gave birth to him when she was young because she was unfortunately raped. And, Fred Darren, when he was, still in the closet and didn't want to tell the world that he was a gay man. Everybody just started sharing their stories with me. And telling me, look, if we can share our stories with the world, you can tell people about your story. You can tell people that you struggle with depression and whatnot. And, mental health is serious to me because, one of my uncles is schizophrenic. I grew up in a single parent home and, my mom was very tough on us. She raised 4 kids and, my mom had borderline personality. So my mom wasn't always the best. And, when I was young, I didn't really understand it. I didn't know what was happening. I just thought that, it was just people being bad people. But then I started to realize that mental health plays a major factor in a lot of things. So when I went to college, I actually got a degree in psychology. And I didn't really do anything with it because I immediately switched over to marketing. But I was able to learn about mental health. I was able to learn that there's a lot of mental disorders out there that, being bipolar, being schizophrenic, being, just someone who's always depressed. It's not something that just happens overnight. It's something that happens sometimes with childhood traumas, with experiences, with PTSD. Sometimes people, that go to the military, our veterans, a lot of our veterans come back with PTSD and that starts, affecting their mental health from what they've seen. So my advice to anyone out there that's struggling is there's so much help out there. You're not alone. And, even if you feel that there's certain people you can't confide in, believe it or not, talk to a stranger, talk to someone on social media. There's hotlines for free that you can call. I know that during the pandemic, mental health was at an all-time high. You know what I'm saying? Don't be afraid. Don't be embarrassed. I'm a 35-year-old man and I have a therapist and I speak to her every week. And I've been seeing this therapist for 4 years now. And the reason why I talk to her is because, the work that I do is pretty exhausting. People see the work that I do and they tell me, oh man, it seems like you're having fun all the time. You're always traveling and, you always get to meet all these great people. Like, I want to have your job. And I tell people, look, you only see what I post on social media, but you don't know what's going on behind the scenes. You don't know what's going on, behind closed doors. You don't know the experiences that I'm going through. And even with this beautiful life that I have, I've had some problems with people, business wise, personally. I was recently in a 2-year relationship that was very toxic and, it affected my mental health a lot. And as much as I didn't want to let go of this person, we knew that, deep down inside, we had to let go of each other because we were not meant for one another. And that affected my mental health, that affected my former partner's mental health as well, too. And, sometimes, I don't know if this happens to you guys, but sometimes you could just be anywhere and some stranger just comes out of nowhere and talks to you and just starts venting to you. It could be at a bar, it could be on the plane, it could be at the airport, it could be anywhere. I've had that a lot. I've had people come up to me and just start venting to me and telling me their stories. And sometimes I look at them and I'm like, man, I thought my story was worse, but this person has it worse than me. You know what I'm saying? Out here in Louisiana, I talk to people all the time, and they tell me that they're still distraught from Hurricane Katrina, and that happened so many years ago. You know what I'm saying? That was like 2008 when Hurricane Katrina happened. And still people that are homeless from that. So, I don't judge anybody. I'm one of the first people, and you guys will probably notice this about me if you guys ever hang out with me. Someone that's different may pass by, and then a group of people might start laughing at them and making fun of them. I'm one of the people that that doesn't do that because, I never try to judge anyone. I never try to make fun of anyone because I don't know what made them get there to that point, where they look different from everybody. So, you'll be surprised. sometimes, people with the biggest fortunes and the biggest, the wealthiest lives, they will tell you that they have mental health problems. We hear this all the time. We hear all these famous people and that commit suicide and all these other people. Look at that model the other day, the Miss Universe chick who jumped off the balcony from her house in New York City and killed herself.
Yeah.
People have to understand that these people feel that there's no hope. And the reason why they feel there's no hope is because most of the time, the people that they have confided in have either not giving them any love and support, or, people turn around and make fun of them and stab them in the back and talk bad about them. When someone comes to me and someone tells me their story or tells me they're going through something, I never pass along the information unless I feel that the person's in danger. Like I've had people tell me, Rob, I think I'm going to kill myself, or Rob, I've reached my breaking point. I don't know what I'm going to do. Then I go out and reach for help. Like I've asked my therapist, hey, I spoke to somebody the other day that literally says they're going to take their life away. I want to get this person help as soon as possible. What should I do? You know what I'm saying? But other than that, anything else, it's, you can confide in me. I would never talk about anything that, you confide in me about. And, that's why I became a mental health advocate. I work with Movember. So Movember is something that, they're around all year round.
Yeah.
Every November, I asked a few friend of mine to, grow a mustache for men's mental health. Also for men that are dying from cancer, like, prostate cancer and stuff like that. And, I want to get deeply involved with more mental health stuff because, like I said, there's so many people out there that think that no one cares and people will not listen to their story, or there's people out there that are too scared to share their story because of the stigmas and the stereotypes. And I want to be one of those people that's out there to tell you, look, it's okay. Tell your story. You don't know who you're going to inspire. You don't know who's out there who's actually going to listen to you. You might stop someone from committing suicide just by sharing your story, So, yeah, mental health is a very serious situation for me, and it always will be.
No, for sure. And there's a lot of good stuff you said there that people can take from. And I do think one of the things people really struggle with is opening up about it or having the perception that nobody else is really going to care or understand. So that's why I do believe, like, when you do share your own story, it lets people be like, oh, I relate to that. There's someone else is kind of going through this. And I think the older I got, and obviously through the industries I've been through, whether it was real estate or marketing or banking and whatnot, like a lot of things that I think is a really good thing that people should try to understand is, like, a lot of things aren't meant to be shots at you personally. Like, you never know what someone's going through. You never know how someone's day started. You never know what other worries and stresses they have. And I think a thing that people do a lot, and I'm saying this now just because I'm someone who's like on social media and I'm connected with a lot of younger people, like, how do you go to social media? How do I get a wrestling page like that or this and that? And it's just like, just make sure you're doing it because it makes you happy, and make sure you're not taking things personally, because a lot of things will happen and it's not a dig at you or you're not a bad person. Maybe it was just bad first impression or something, but sometimes people are going through their own stuff and everybody's got something going on, like literally everybody, and it doesn't matter how big or small, it still matters to them and it messes with them. And I think as humans, we all got to start understanding each other, and that, like, having a little bit of compassion, having a little bit of empathy, and just understanding, like, I've always, like, never been hesitant to be like, if I feel the vibe of, like, one, okay, like, so you're being a little off today, and asking, like, is everything all right? Like, what's going on? I don't expect them to tell me, but, like, you don't know how far just asking someone can go, because nobody's gonna just bring it up to you unless you go like, hey, is everything good? Like, you're all right? And it matters. And I think you're right. There's a bad stigma with mental health and it being like, don't share it, keep it to yourself, and that's even worse than not sharing it or talking about it, because you're going to drive yourself crazy. And I think people should be talking about it more often. I know when Danial first started the Dropkick podcast, the biggest thing about it was that they would always touch on mental health. Like, that was like part of what the podcast was. And I'm glad he brought it up today. And I'm glad I got to learn about that about you, Rob, that you're involved with the mental health advocacy a ton. Like, I didn't know that. Like, that's new to me, and I think that's super cool. And I'm glad we talked about it. I think that's really cool. And I think people should talk about it more. And if they take anything away from this entire episode, there's a ton of cool stuff we talked about. Like, the WWE is a great company. Like, your story about Flair and the story about Stephanie and all this stuff. Like, it's super cool. And there's a lot of things you can learn from that too. Because I always people, I'm like, I don't necessarily think like everything happens for a reason, because a lot of things are at the moment like that just doesn't make sense. Like sometimes really bad things happen that just don't make sense. But I do think you can learn something from everything that happens to you. There's something you can learn and grow from every experience that happens to you. And even if it's like a really bad experience and you don't even want to think about it and you black it out, think about like 2-3 years down the road and you'd be like, you know what? If that taught me this, or I grew from that because of this, and I'm the person I am today because that happened, and it gave me some sort of like experience that I had to like grow from. And I think with a lot of the stories you shared with us today was just like we learned about mental health, we learned about, you know, the experiences and networking, and the way of just, you know, going on a limb and believing in yourself and betting on yourself and be like, no, I can help you with this. And those opportunities came to you because you put yourself out there. You put yourself in that uncomfortable position to say, hey, I think I can help with this. This is what I do for a living. This is my business. And it's opened doors for you. You were someone that we started this interview talking about how you grew up a wrestling fan. And now you're working with the WWE, part of their community team. Like that's insane. Like that's something to be really proud of. Like that's super cool, you know? And then not only that, you did that for yourself and you opened up a little bit about your growing up and your family and your mom and this and that. Now you're like doing stuff to help other people that might have felt a certain way you felt when you were a kid. And I just think that's super cool. Like I actually really, 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 really admire that. Like that I didn't want to like cut in when you were talking about stuff because obviously we've had a little bit of lagging here, but like I was sitting here with like trying not to smile, and I want to smile because I'm like, oh, this is like a really cool story.
Really cool, yeah.
You know? And it's you know, it's pretty inspirational. And I think if anyone, you know, takes anything away from this interview, it's like it doesn't matter what your situation is, it doesn't matter how bad you think it is. Like it can get better. You gotta talk about what's going on, and you just gotta keep trucking and moving forward and rolling with the punches. And I do truly believe with all the good things that happen to you and all the successes that you have, it is very important to make sure you give back at the end of the day.
Yeah, giving back is very important to me. I feel that, you know, at this stage of the game where I'm at, I've accomplished a lot. You know, I of course I feel in the back of my head that I you know, I have a lot more to do. But you know, I've been very fortunate to have a certain amount of people in my life that have been very supportive. Some of the people being from WWE, my business partner, Matty Rock, the people that I've met on social media over the last few years, you know, the wrestling community of, you know, like how they say, you know, people that meet through wrestling. I've met so many good people, and I always tell them, like, look, if you are fortunate to get to a certain place in life or to get certain things or receive certain blessings, make sure to give back. You know what I'm saying? Volunteer, pay it forward, always pay it forward. There's National Pay It Forward Day. I think it's like in April or something like that. And I always tell people to pay it forward. You know,
every day.
You know, I started off when I started going to WWE shows getting comp tickets. Now I get tickets and I give people free tickets to go to shows. You know, when I hear someone asking for help online or whatever the case may be, or a GoFundMe or whatever the case may be, I chip in. You know what I'm saying? Because it's all about paying it forward. You know, it's not about waving a flag and saying, "Oh, look at me, I'm over here, Mr. Philanthropist." No.
Yeah, no, and it's just you get what you give, and you give what you get. And I think
you can give, you know, give whatever you have, whatever little you have, share that.
And no, for sure. And I think like, and it's hard too, because sometimes I'll drop names, and I'm like, I'm not dropping names for any other reason that like I realize who's tried to help me out, and I want to give them the props they deserve, because why are they helping me out? They barely even know me, and I think everybody deserves their props. Don't get me wrong, but it's also you got to pay it forward. You gotta. Yeah, I believe in that. I don't know, that last part of this interview, I was like, no, like this, and then I was thinking about everything we talked about. I'm like, this is like from start to finish the way we did this, like the story that is like this full circle, and I'm like, it's really cool, you know, because that's the way I always feel like things could be. I mean, like, man, I connected with Danial, the kid that wanted to get involved with wrestling and do interviews and stuff. I'm like, hop on with me, we'll do some stuff, you know. He came down to Dallas, he took me to the WrestleMania event, so I know you're the same vibe, man, and I dig it. You know what I mean? Like it's yeah, and I have a really like. And you might relate to this, but like I have a really soft spot for like teenagers and kids that want to do things, but they feel like they can't because their position in life and maybe their home life and this and that. And I just feel like, no, like I've been so lucky, and you can relate to this. Like of doing things I never imagined, talking to people I never imagined I'd talk to, that I believe. I'm like, oh, I don't really think anything's that impossible anymore. Like, with social media, you're like one DM away from somebody at these days. So I'm like, you can really do anything you want if you really put the work in and try hard. And I think, and I think it's really cool what you've been able to build here.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. No, but I think like hearing both of you guys' stories is cool. I respect Rob for doing what he's, killing it every single day with the whole social media thing. And, Justin too, like with the whole wrestling classic thing. So I think like it really goes back to the thing of like, believing in yourself and like having that chip on your shoulder and like doing whatever you can to make that dream, come possible. Because I feel like every day you wake up is an opportunity to chip at what you want to do. And I think that's the best way to really put it, I guess.
Is there anything you want to talk about before we wrap things up? Is there anything coming up that people should know about? Any projects you're working on?
Well, it is a new year, so there's a few projects that I'm working on right now. Some of them I can't really talk about, but what I can talk to you guys about is I recently got my media credentials for WrestleMania. So this is the third WrestleMania that I get media credentials for. The first one was WrestleMania 35 in New York City, and then 36. Actually, 36. No, 35 was not in New York, right? Which one was in New York?
35 was in New York. 36 was the
yeah.
pandemic one. 37 was last year's.
That's right.
There we go. Yeah.
So I was able to get media credentials for 35, for 37 last year, and for this year, 38. 2 nights. I also recently just got my media credentials for the Hall of Fame, SmackDown, and also for the Raw After Mania. So I look forward to that. I'm going to be in Dallas, Texas for the second time to able to do a lot of social media coverage. I look forward to meeting everyone out there. I know I'm going to meet a lot of new people. I'm also working on there's this project that I'm working on that's like a Brooklyn-based project, and it's a publishing platform to get people to share their stories and experiences about Brooklyn. And this is a project that I've created years ago, but never really had the resources. It's called the Brooklyn Tribune. So it's pretty much, and
cool.
it's gonna, it's people telling their story about what they saw and what they experienced living in Brooklyn. So we're going to be hearing a lot of good stories, sad stories, mental health stories. Living in New York is not easy. New York is a fast-paced place, and it's for those that live here, God bless. But I would never recommend anybody to come live in New York. I mean, hey, if you have a dream, if your opportunity is here in New York City and this is where you believe you're going to make it, I will indeed support that. You know what I'm saying? But if you're just trying to move from like one of the most beautiful places in the world to come live in New York, I'll probably be like, nah, man. Unless you have a purpose. You know what I'm saying? If you have a purpose to live here, by all means.
Mm-hmm.
And that's pretty much it.
Well, thank you very much for coming on. This is like a really insightful and just a really solid conversation. I really wish my internet was a little bit better, but outside of that, this was really, really good.
It was great, yeah.
I really appreciate your time. I hope we can get together again maybe sometime soon. Maybe I'll even have you just come on the other wrestling show and we could talk about what's going on. And maybe after you come back from WrestleMania, we can talk about your experience. But other than that, it'd be great. It was great having you on.
I appreciate it, man. Dan, thanks for everything. You're doing great as well in the stuff that you do. You're also doing your thing on social media as well. And Justin, what you're doing with the Wrestling Classic is phenomenal. You created a platform, an outlet for people to connect on, and just keep doing what you're doing, man. And just remember. And this advice goes to the both of you guys. Whatever you guys do, just remember that when you wake up in the morning, just give thanks for another day of life. Same thing when you go to bed, give thanks because you got home safe and you're able to, wake up the next day. And everything you do, just moving forward, do it, professionally, do it well. If you ever run into any problems with anybody, try to find a solution to it. Some people are very easy to deal with. If it's not worth the energy, just let it go. You know what I'm saying? But if it's something that's fixable, I honestly think that almost everything in life is fixable. go for it. You know what I'm saying? Treat people kind, be kind to others. Like you mentioned earlier, we don't know sometimes what people are going through. It's not our job to make fun of them or put them down even worse. Try to, find out what's going on, do a good deed every single day. If you see an old lady crossing the street, help her, you know what I'm saying? If you see someone drop something or just holding the door for someone or whatever, all of that is something that, as time goes by, it will be paid forward. It will be reciprocated. You know what I'm saying? You put in good karma into the world, you're going to get good karma back. You put in bad karma into the world, you're going to get bad karma back. So it's the energy that you put into the world. And I've learned this like nothing else, because, I was someone that used to walk out there all the time with a chip on my shoulder, always mad at the world. But then when I started to see all the bad things happening to me, everybody kept saying, well, think about it. If you're bringing negative energy into your life, you're going to have nothing but negative stuff going on in your life. Once I started to think a little bit more positive, better things started to happen for me. And I realized that I was blocking a lot of my blessings, and now I'm letting these blessings, come to me full speed.
Oh, for sure. I appreciate you doing this, man. Hopefully we link up at WrestleMania, and we
will. Trust me, there's no hopefully. We're gonna link up for sure.
For sure, yeah. I'll interview you in person. I'm excited.
I appreciate that.
Sure. Where can everybody find you on social media, and where can they find the agency?
Yeah, so my personal socials, Rob Aurelius. You can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, Rob Aurelius. And you can also find my business, ARCG Media, on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at ARCG Media.
There you go, guys. Go check it out. The super cool, a lot of cool stuff there. Go find that Ric Flair video. Maybe I'll post it so you guys can see it. Go find the picture of Stephanie. I mean, we might need to have a poster to promote this interview. We'll post that little Ric Flair shot so all the people can see it. But I hope you guys all enjoy the rest of your day. Hope you guys enjoyed this interview. Keep doing the thing. Subscribe, share. Apple Podcast, Spotify, Dash Radio every Monday on Ruckus Avenue Radio at 1 p.m. and all that fun stuff. And of course on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube. I gotta start pushing that a little bit harder, but keep doing the thing. It was a pleasure having you on here, Rob. I want to have you on some of the other stuff too. I think it'd be cool. You're like a legit fan. That's the best thing to be. So keep doing the thing. Keep watching the greatest form of art and athleticism, professional wrestling, and we'll see you all later. Ooh, yeah. Dig it.
Hey, good night. We sincerely appreciate your patronage and hope we've succeeded in bringing you an enjoyable evening of entertainment. Please drive home carefully and come back again soon. Good night.